Welcome back, welcome back.
How was it?
I hope you enjoyed anything that you were doing during the break, or enjoyed going to the next set if you're watching the VOD. I hope you enjoyed BWC, where we just came from.
Yeah, just flew in from Shanghai this morning, woke up at 5 a.m. to catch the plane. Currently...
Well, somebody woke up at 5 a.m.
Yeah. Someone had to be woken up at when the cab was about to leave.
I was a bit late on the morning. Here is, of course, Fnatic Alive.
Thankfully, you packed in advance, though.
I packed in advance.
You were smart about it.
I've been...
At least when you oversleep, you're smart about it. That's awesome.
Yeah, see, like, when I was packed and ready to go, I was so scared. His opponent, of course, is Flying, who is the talk of the town for Casper Protoss right now.
He indeed is. Flying, of course, one of the Casper players. Huge deal in StarCraft 1. Let's see how well he will do in StarCraft 2. He's playing against a Fnatic player, Alive, of course, a really strong opponent here in the first round of Code A. Both of them are playing in Cloud Kingdom here to the top right in blue, or Protoss. And this is going to be a very interesting one. Flying is one of those players who everyone really hoped he would make it through the bracket.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why he's so regarded as a good player in StarCraft 2 is he was one of the first players who switched over to StarCraft 2 from Broodwar, from the Kestra players, who was doing consistently well in Pro League and looking like he was a solid player. Now, he is getting a late gate, and so far late gas as well. He has clicked on the assimilator with his, looks like his Nexus rally. Yeah, so that's going to allow him to start that gas right away. A little bit later, though, on the gas than you would normally see.
This is one of the best matchups for Alive, our Terran player that we see. But to be honest with you, if you just look at the recent games that he played against Protoss, he struggled a little bit. He lost to Arthur with a 2-0 in the NASL Season 4. He lost to JYP at WEM. And he was barely able to edge out a win against SARS at the same tournament. So these days against Protoss, Alive not as dominant as he was half a year ago. This gives Fly a bit of an opportunity, of course. The Protoss player to the top right has done very well against the Terran players that he played recently, especially against Sound at the GSL preliminaries.
That Sound is actually someone that's kind of fallen off the radar a little bit, but definitely a top-notch player to be able to beat.
There are sometimes just preliminary brackets where you have a lot of... Well, I don't want to be harsh, but you have sometimes there are brackets where there are only mediocre opponents. It happens.
Yeah, it happens. Sometimes you even hit that guy who's like in Silver League, who's like just hanging out in Korea, wants to play in the qualifiers. So
exactly.
That might happen.
But he, and by he I mean Flying, had to face really tough opponents in his bracket. He took down players like Sound, like Solmosa. So this is really something. You can really see that he belongs here in Code A. But unfortunately, of course, only one of them will be able to advance to the second round. The other one will have to go down to Code B to qualify next season again. And Alive is going without gas straight into the second orbital command that he built. So he has 3 in total. And let's see what Flying's idea here is in this game, now being on 2 bases.
Yeah, this 3-base command center build is becoming so popular right now because people have figured out it's pretty easy to hold almost any Protoss aggression if you can scout it well enough. Alive being very aggressive here. He forced the Pro pull-off earlier. He's damaging the Zealot really heavily. And this actually occurred because Flying wasn't able to get vision of those units approaching on the map because of the SCV, so that was really nicely done. Just everything came together there.
The bunker at the front now for Alive will secure himself the position on the low ground, so he can lower the first orbital commander to the mineral line. And, well, both of them just staying back a little bit. No one putting on this massive aggression. We don't see any kind of marine run-bys trying to hit the mineral line and kill a few probes. We don't see a huge gateway amount being built for Flying, who could try to be very aggressive in the gateway timing. Both of them just sitting tight for now and trying to opt for the late and middle.
Yeah, certainly. Now, Flying is someone I have not actually been able to watch a game of in a really long time. I was watching him a lot during the beginning of Pro League because he was someone everyone was talking about, and that was a time when I, like most StarCraft fans, are really excited to see how these players were going to switch over, to see if they played really differently or if they had, you know, their styles were unrefined. And I feel like at that time, even though it was such a long time ago, Flying was very fast, and I noticed that he had really great decision-making in the late game. So, given that we have had...
actually say that his fingers were flying across the keyboard.
They flew across the keyboard. You could say he's pretty fly for a Korean guy.
That was such a facepalm joke.
Yeah,
I can see so many people sitting in front of this. I'm like, oh my god, Calder, did you really just do that?
Well,
that was god awful.
It was fine. It's okay. All right, we all make mistakes.
Hey, I'm absolutely happy I made that joke. Someone had to do it. I just sacrificed myself.
Someone had to do it, and now I'm saved. Because what if I had to do it? Then I would.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine what would have happened. You would have lost your reputation of being a really funny guy. I know that I'm not funny, so I can get away with it.
Well, you know, the reputation that Flying has is something he wants to keep, and let's see if he can do that. What I was getting into a little bit earlier is decision-making in the late game was insanely good back then, and I think that comes from his Brood War background, of course, because he didn't just get it from instinct, unless he's an insane, crazy person or an alien or something. But in reality, he's actually going to be able to have improved so much over these past few months, training in a Kesper practice environment, and I'm really excited, actually, to see what he's going to do against Alive if we get into that late game.
You know, when the Kesper players started to transition to StarCraft 2, we casted most of the matches that they played in the GSL and also in these qualifiers. And we talked a lot about them having the perfect training regime, that they have all the tools that they need to be good, but at this point they were a little bit overhyped. I feel there are still a few players who get a lot of attention, even though they don't get the results just yet. But I feel back then we were pretty spot on. We have a lot of good Kesper players these days, as for example Rain, who finished 3rd at the WCS, that do really, really well in the GSL, in the OSL, in all these big tournaments. And it just shows that these Kesper players definitely know what to do. They can definitely keep up with the ESF players. It is just this battle on eye level between them, and Flying is one of those guys who is now suddenly in Code A. He can really prove himself here. He had a really tough bracket in the qualifier and is now in a position where he can just show the world, okay, listen up, I'm here, I'm definitely a contender to deal with, I'm up against a strong opponent, I know that Alive is not a pushover, but I feel confident that I can take him down, and Alive is definitely not approaching this like any other game where he says like, okay, I have this is easy.
You're so right, especially considering it's the game that decides whether or not he stays in the GSL or he falls down in Code B. Flying flies his observer into the main base here and sees the 3rd command center, as well as now I gotta check again here. He saw the 3rd command center, but he didn't see all these barracks being added just yet, and he saw the reactors for the starport, so he knows what's coming his way. He starts the Twilight Council. This is going to be useful for multiple reasons. He needs to start double upgrades, but without that Twilight Council, he can't get his +2 armor going just yet. It's about to finish.
3 additional gateways now coming up, whereas +1/+1 for Alive is nearly done. Flying is waiting at the top of the ramp. He tries to have a few Stalkers ready for potential drop play, but his 3rd is at this point a bit exposed.
Yeah, and he needs to get his units over there right now. He has not seen this. His observer saw the army, but he did not react. The scan goes off here. He's like, well, they're way out of position. He wants to target this Nexus down, and with all these Terran units, he will definitely get it.
Alive can't really believe what's happening here. He's like walking up this ramp and is like, okay, excuse me, where exactly are you?
Yeah, he even scanned, like...
He drops the scan. He's like, he has to be somewhere. This doesn't make sense.
He probably freaked out back at home and thought that the attack was coming or something like that. But
I feel like Flying didn't pay attention to the minimap. You pointed out the observer that he had. He saw the army.
Yeah, there's no way he missed it. I mean, there's no way he couldn't have seen it.
I can understand that he's afraid of a multi-prong attack with the drop at the right side, but still he had this main force at the natural, so it feels a little bit like he was scared that Alive would suddenly change course, move to the right, and try to hit the natural. But Alive was super happy of just going into the 3rd, sniping it, and then moving back. So a huge win here for the Terran player. He won that battle with flying colors.
Yes, and he is still alive though. Flying is, because he's got that 3rd Nexus rebuilding, he's got the Blink, the 2/2 coming out, and +1 is coming for the Vikings for Alive. He's down in supply, but he's got this strong position on the map that he was granted with that Nexus. You know, Flying's Force Shield wasn't quite so good on trapping those Marines, so Alive actually got most of his army out.
Yeah, he didn't even have to use his medivacs to elevate them on the other side. And now Alive is heading straight into the Viking production. He knows that there are going to be Colossi for flying. He actually saw them earlier with the scan, of course. He identified that by now. And he can just prepare for the anti-air, which is exactly what he does. He has 2 starports, both of them equipped with a reactor. And also on its way already where the Templar Archive has just been started. We see on the production that Ghost Academy for Alive. He doesn't miss anything.
Yeah, he seems like one step ahead with his tech in this game. Just always wary of what his opponent may do. And then with the 4 Vikings coming out at a time as well, he's kind of prepared for everything. Again, Flying missing his upgrade a little bit here, not getting his +3. There it is. Now coming out very ahead of his attack upgrade. But there's going to be a pretty strong period of time where Alive is ahead in upgrades with his +2 attack being way ahead of Flying's.
Which is actually a little bit funny if you think about it, because usually it's exactly the other way around.
Yeah.
Usually you have the Protoss player who's the one with the Chrono Boost who is just far ahead in the upgrades, but this is not the case this time. We have now Charge Upgrade being researched, and Alive is already preparing for the next step with the 4th base, which is built at the right side, so he will actually see when there's some kind of attempted run and there, like a sneak by into his 3rd base. +3/+3 immediately started for Alive. On top of things, once again, as pointed out. But Flying is also trying to expand again. At the top left, with the pylon, Nexus is probably going to be used very soon.
Yeah, he may just leave that for drops for now, but you're probably right. I mean, he could take a hidden Nexus up to the top left rather than taking the 4th base that you normally see, because this is a base that Alive might not scout.
You are right. That is more likely going to be the pylon for the drop play. For a second there, I kind of...
We do see Protoss take that expansion, though, sometimes, instead of taking the normal 4th, because it throws Terrans off. It's kind of a risk. I wouldn't call it a hidden expansion, but Alive has the perfect composition, arguably, here with all of these Vikings. He's taken out the Colossi so quickly.
He has to get into a good position, though. The force field split the army, and the Archons are trying to close the distance with the slight aerial effect damage that they dish out. The big problem, though, is the Colossi are gone. The last one's evaporating here, and Alive seems to be on fire.
Yeah, right now he has that attack upgrade done. Flying that is, but since he had to pull his Stalkers back to deal with the Vikings, he didn't have that extra DPS. Now the last Marauders here, cleaning up a few of the Stalkers on their way out. He's trying to save them with the Medivacs. He doesn't have any reinforcements. He needs to pick up and get out. But the trade was pretty good, I have to say. Another issue, though, Alive is going to face is he's no longer going to have that even upgrade. His opponent's upgrades with Chrono Boosting have taken a slight lead here. He will have +2 for his ships, though, for the next Colossi he faces. He has to remake a few Medivacs, though. You know, this is a situation where Alive traded, but I think maybe he should have gotten out a little bit sooner.
Yeah, I completely agree. He could have gotten out a bit sooner. At some point it was kind of obvious as with the additional warp-ins, Flying would be ready to defend. But on the other hand, if you think about it, we have now 5 bases for Alive. He has so many orbitals, he has planetaries on its way, he has the Mineral Alliance. He can trade. He has an advantage in economy, so if he just trades army and is cost efficient, then he will be in a good spot with the second wave. A bit more production would be good, and this is exactly why he adds these 4 barracks, because after the last fight, he still had 1,400 minerals floating.
Yeah. You know, we see a second wave of Zealots actually warp into the 4th base down here, and they're gonna chase the SCVs away. You guys aren't seeing it on screen, but he actually got 6 Zealots down there, in fact, and there's no answer back at home, so Alive is gonna lose a lot of SCVs, but at the same time, he's more focused here on this Nexus, which he wants to force a cancel on. A good EMP, but is it good enough? He doesn't have time to target the Nexus. Now he does it for a second. A little bit indecisive, though.
But a nice concave here for Alive, and now he suddenly moves in and chases down the Protoss army. Fly has to fly out of here, and he's trying to save those Colossi. It's just not really possible. All of them die, and so do the hopes of Flying to win game number 1.
Now the Zealots still doing damage for Flying down here at the bottom left, but it looks like this is just not going to be enough to get him back into this game. He wishes he had all those Zealots in there to buffer for his Colossi, and look at this, the Zealots not really able to surround. Even the probes doing damage from behind. The Ghosts are attacking the Nexus. He actually brings them into the fight now, and even though it's hard to see what's underneath that medevac cloud, that is it. GG.
Alive with a lead in this best of 3 takes game number 1 on Cloud Kingdom. Flying now down a game, and well, he put up a good fight, but it is Alive, the Fnatic player, who takes the lead, and if he wins another match, then he will be in the second round of Code A.
Yeah. This,
Tiga is actually going to be the next map.
You know what I've been thinking about a lot? You're right, that is going to be the next map. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think these Zealot run-bys that Protosses are doing are not being done properly. I feel like, I mean, not, I don't want to say properly in that the players are doing it in a way where it's like they shouldn't be doing it, but I think that maybe they should be doing it more when the Terrans are not so close to them and not so strong in the army, because I was watching, we've been watching this a lot recently. Flying warped in so many Zealots to do harassment, but if he had 10 or even 12 Zealots extra in his army, his Colossi probably would have had enough buffer for him to hold that 4th base, but instead he died, and the Zealots chased SCVs away for a little bit, but that's all they really did. They weren't able to do a massive amount of economic damage, and that put him in a position where he couldn't actually defend with his army. And I think that in the late game, Zealot run-bys are really strong, or even in a position where you know your opponent is desperate to defend somewhere else, and then you warp in Zealots, that could be good. But I feel so many Protosses right now are using it as a harassment. They're using it correctly, but a little bit haphazardly, like not as refined as it could be.
Yeah, I think you're right about it, especially since Alive, for example, is one of those Terran players who does a really great job at dealing with these problems and then focusing on the main fight at the same time. So you can really see that he was pressuring and flying the entire time at the 4th base while dealing with the Zealots at home, and he didn't have a problem at all with his run-by. He knew that he was in a position where he can take down the army and just decide the game in his favor.
Yeah.
And now we are just waiting for the second map to be started, with Alive taking the lead here. It looks pretty good for the Fnatic player.
And Flying is going to have still a lot of opportunities to get back in here, though. Game number 2, though, on Antigua against Alive's style and how good he is at pressuring with those medevacs and doing multi-pronged attacks is going to be a tough game for him, because Alive is probably going to hit with those 2 medevacs. He may do one of his famous 2 racks openings as well on this map. I would not be surprised when he's up a game. Alive loves to do, you know, just more aggressive play like that.
It's going to be interesting to see what Flying's takeoff choice is. I would love to see a bit of Blink Stalker play here. A lot of Protoss players, though, decide to go into the expansion and not stick it out with the Blink Stalkers. But it's always an option that you have, especially on a map like Antigua. There's so many possibilities to jump up the ramp. You want to have, of course, this robotics for the Observer. But the game is about to start here. So we have now a Terran versus Protoss, and the last game of the day, of course, Yonghwa versus Mini. This is also something that you can already look forward to. Antigua Shipyard is now hosted. The